마무리 인사를 드리도록 하겠습니다.
This guy looks very, very sad. Oh my god, what is going on? So the guy you just saw that looks super sad and very depressed, that was one of the PDs, or the directors for Chaos Zero Nightmare. And they just had an emergency live stream for the Korean players because if you guys didn't know, there's a lot of drama on the Korean end. And a lot of those problems were actually acknowledged, and we're just going to talk about it today. I will have some just random Chaos Zone, Chaos Mode gameplay running because you don't really want to watch someone just sitting there talking anyways that you don't even understand. So I'll just be summarizing it and just giving my personal opinions and, you know, what I actually think about the situation. So basically, a lot of problems actually have arisen from the game's launch, right? You know, there was a lot of payment issues, there were gacha issues, people were duping summons, and they said that they're working very, very urgently to fix it all. And they're actually going to give us 10 free pulls every week for a set period. So if you guys didn't actually have any problems with the game and you were just like playing through and having fun like normal people, then you just benefit, you get a ton of free summons, right? But for people that were affected, they're just giving out a lot of summons. And I think, you know, is this required to this extent? I think it's probably not to this extent, but there were a lot of people affected by this. I've had a few people that I know actually make an account and re-roll, and then they lost their account due to the bugs on release. And your accounts just randomly got deleted and they couldn't recover it, except for some cases, right? So because of this, you know, people lost a lot of time, and even some people that spent money on the game already lost money. So because of this, they are giving us these 10 pulls. So that is what they're saying is their quote-unquote commitment to the game, which is very important. And this is what they are giving us for compensation right now. Now, following that, I want to talk about some stuff that the Korean community has been talking about every single day since the game's launch, which, you know, I've been seeing in the Korean forums, you know, because I've been very curious and looking at it almost daily, actually, on Naver. And basically, the biggest problems with the game for the Koreans is the story, right? And I think it's not just the Koreans. I'll just say for everyone, because I think everyone feels this as well. The story felt really rushed and kind of dissatisfactory, if that makes sense. And the reason why is because, you know, it just feels like we weren't engaged at all as players. And me personally, I don't really care about the story too much, but a lot of people have been saying that the story felt pretty rushed. And because of this, what they plan to do, they also acknowledged it, is they're going to revamp the entire story. So the chapters we played through, chapters 1 to 4, chapters 1 to 5, however far you are, they're going to be fully remade and revamped. The main character, which is us, will now be the real main character. It's not going to really be Owen and stuff like that, which we'll talk about the Owen situation. And they're also going to use different voice actors by 2026. So they are revamping the entire story, which is absolutely crazy. And the Owen thing, the Koreans actually hate Owen. I think on the global side, there might be some people that also hate him, but not as much. And the reason why is because Owen is like in a harem. Like, people hate that this male character is like getting close with Renoa specifically. So what they're doing is they're gonna just remake it so that we are the main characters and Owen is gone. So I don't know if they'll kill Owen or if they'll just remove him or they'll just make him like a side character like, you know, some of the males you see in the game. But for the most part, you know, he's not going to be the main character. And I think it's a funny outcome because I don't think most people on the global side for our community cared too much because, you know, it's not a big deal. Like, it's literally just a game, like touch grass, right? But, you know, that is what's happening. So very interesting. Also, another big problem that, you know, everyone has been experiencing is the text in the game. So there's some text in this game that makes zero sense. So usually in these games, in gacha games, you're gonna like, even like card games, right? You're gonna like use a card or whatever, and then, you know, if you don't really understand what it does fully, after you use it once or twice, you kind of understand. In this game, you can use a card like 20 times and you still won't know what it does because the text does not make any sense, and then the effect is nowhere close to what it is. A good example is like Rin's card. Like Rin's card, I think one of her cards says she draws a card, but it can only draw her own card. And a lot of people don't know this, and it actually makes her playstyle a lot more different because you can use that card a lot more aggressively, right? When you're playing for keeping your stance. So like stuff like that's getting changed, you know. A lot of the text in this game is very bad. I'd have to agree with that. Like, for example, you know, Celestial, which is basically if you play a card that's 2 cost or more, the Celestial card gets played automatically, got changed randomly to Heaven. Ultimate, which if you use that card, it ends your turn, is now called Finale. And there's like a ton of other stuff that doesn't make sense in the game, just like text-wise. And they said that they're gonna fix it. So, I mean, I think that's a pretty easy fix, right? You know, you just look at what the card does in your code. I mean, the players can tell you what the cards do, and then you just word it so it explains it, right? So they talked about, you know, improving the localization, which is very important, which is very nice, and I'm very happy that, you know, they'll actually do that. Now, aside from the story, there's like some other stuff they talked about. They talked about how, you know, the Koreans weren't happy with how you could bond with your characters, so they are going to make it so that you can bond with them more. They also talked about, you know, like, for example, there's a good example where, like, in Japanese, if you, like, talk to Rin or something like that, it would say something about, like, marriage, and then, like, in the English translation, in the Korean translation, it says they're just going to be together. Like, to you, when you're playing the game, when you talk to Rin, it says, like, oh, we'll just be together now. So they were mad about that. So they're changing that, I guess. They want to marry Rin in game, so interesting. Not for me, but they're going to change that. They also talked about the Affinity system, how the Affinity system is also going to be fixed and make it so that you don't have to grind as much, because honestly, the grind for Affinity in this game is like the worst grind in the game, because your beginner quests, your growth guide quests are locked behind this Affinity system, which is giga time gated. And it's okay to time gate stuff like that, but it's not like comparable to the other quests in that guide. So you're always waiting for that Affinity to get to the next level, which is super annoying. And by the time you get to that next level, you already have everything else done but the next Affinity quest. So it gets really, really repetitive, and like you're always waiting for Affinity, so they're fixing that, and they mentioned it. That's why they're giving us those gifts every day, as kind of like to fix it slightly, even though it's not nearly enough in my opinion, because, you know, it's just way too much Affinity you need. And there's a lot of RNG with the Affinity based off if they show up in your town and stuff like that. So they talked about reducing the grind for that. They also talked about the AI art rumors. So people were saying that they expected better art, and like the art and, you know, the animations are nothing like one of their other big games, Epic 7, which is known for having crisp, amazing artwork and animations. So people are just saying that they're using AI and stuff like that, which is, you know, not a good thing to use. It's not a bad thing to use, but people are like anti-AI right now, especially in Korea. They're like super anti-AI because not just of games, but of like work culture and stuff like that. So they said that they're going to be more transparent and, you know, put more effort into the, you know, designs. They didn't acknowledge that they used AI, or they didn't, but they said that they were kind of hinting that they didn't use AI. So I assume regardless that the art will get better, which is very good. Some other stuff they talked about, you know, just like pricing and stuff like that was a big thing. They actually compared it to Genshin. They said that their model was based off Genshin, which is obvious, like very obvious, right? But they just wanted to make it a cheaper version. I think they said like 20-30%. So, but they said that they'll still give us even more event rewards, because honestly, if you're basing it off of Genshin Impact, and I don't want to offend Genshin players out there, the Genshin monetization system is so predatory that even if you're 30% better than it, you're still predatory. So I think, you know, they talked about that. They're going to make it so that it's, I don't want to say cheaper, but better monetization is what they said, better business model. And they also even talked about like chaos mode. So people were talking about chaos mode being like super, you know, unfun and like very repetitive. And like the Koreans were also complaining that you can't auto it, because, you know, a lot of people don't like just fully manual grinding, because even though chaos mode, you do want to manual it because the AI in this game is terrible in terms of playing cards, you kind of get bored of autoing it over and over, especially the first like floor where you can basically just auto through it very easily. So they said that they'll bring major changes, I don't know what that actually means, and make it better. So hopefully, you know, maybe they add auto, maybe they just make it so that there's less RNG, maybe the save data not getting saved gets fixed, because that is like the most tilting part when you get the best deck possible and you're so excited, and then you end the run and then half your cards that you want to keep are gone. I've had runs where I had like 3 Divine Epiphany, you know, insane cards for that character just get randomly, you know, taken out, and I was super tilted and wanted to uninstall. So they talked about that stuff. And, you know, the last thing they talked about, which was something that the Koreans were complaining about throughout the entire stream in the chat box, is the delayed, like, you know, announcements and stuff like that. So everyone kind of knew that there were a lot of problems, especially with like, you know, account deletions and stuff like that, the story mode, right? And the Korean forum was literally booming every single day about it. And, you know, even though it was only 10 days, for them it probably felt like 10 years because they had so many threads on it. So they said that, you know, they were very busy on fixing the most important bugs, which is probably like the payment ones and stuff like that, and like server crashes, which caused slower communication with the community. So they said that they'll be hosting these lives, you know, like this in the future to kind of give like a roadmap and like what they plan and listen to feedback, because this live stream was actually like live, like it wasn't pre-recorded. They answered questions from chat, and you know, I kind of feel bad for them because there were some very, very disgusting messages in chat, like a lot. And you know, even with the end of it, a lot of the players were saying like, oh, he just filled up his time block that they told him to do and now he's running off. So yeah, you know, honestly, I think for the game, it's a good game. I have a lot of fun. There are some changes needed, and I'm glad that they actually addressed this now. But personally, I feel like it's a little bit overblown. I think some things are definitely, you know, understandable, like chaos mode, affinity system really, and stuff like that. But the story definitely needed changing in my opinion. But to fully revamp it, you know, honestly, I can't really give an opinion on that because I didn't even watch the story. I just skipped through it all. But I'm just curious what you guys think about the entire situation. I think it's pretty dumb. Like, just let me play my game. I'm getting 10 free summons a week now. Pretty cool. But I'm just curious what you guys think about the entire situation. And yeah, it's gonna end it here. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk, I guess. But just wanted to talk about it today because so many people were asking me what is going on in the community. And, you know, I didn't really know. But, well, I did really know. But I didn't know, like, how the devs were going to respond to it and fix stuff. But they did put out this live stream, and the official notes should probably go up tomorrow. So thank you for watching, guys. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.